preparing. It's preparing. It's preparing. Setting it up.
I may be having greater Facebook problems. I don't know what's going on now.
Barnes was able to get in and has commented too. I don't know where he is right now, but
For some reason, the fit now, on my other computer, the Facebook says that I'm having connectivity issues, but I'm not with any other website, so I don't know what's going on.
It could be Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems really strange. But, not unfamiliar territory. Whenever we did this last year, we seemed to have
Mr.
a problem or two every now and then.
Mr. Brainerd?
Yes.
If you don't mind being quiet while we do the transition and the test to make sure we populate. And then when you see the thumbs up, then you can chat away at will as you're going to. Awesomeness. All right, I'll be right with you. So Russell, I'm not seeing the splash screen or hearing the video. Did it not get shared?
It's
Hold on a
going.
second.
Oh.
I'm not seeing it at all, Russell. Hold on a minute, Larry. I'll be right with you.
It stopped as far as it didn't loop. There you go.
So it's not looped. Okay, now it's going. All right, go ahead,
Yeah.
Larry. Go live. I'll give you the thumbs up in a minute.
Hello, this is Russell McGee, the festival director of the 2021 Here Now Festival, and I'd like to welcome you to this talk back session with Mike Brainerd and myself. We're here to discuss the Ernie Pyle Experiment Episode 2, That Long Sad Wind, which was a Audie finalist in the audio drama category, as I fumble over my words. And before we get started, I want to take a moment to just thank our sponsors. I want to thank Sound Booth Theater, Podium Audio, Whisper Room, SAG-AFTRA, also the Bloomington Writers Guild, and Earplay, to name a few. There are many other sponsors that have helped us create and put on this festival this year, and we wouldn't have been able to do it without them. So thank you again. And then I hope that everybody is enjoying the festival. This is our last day, so we do still have quite a few things happening today that you can take part in, and we hope that you will and that you enjoy what we have to share with you. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mike so he can introduce himself, and then we'll just go from there.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Brainerd, and I wrote the thing, and directed, created, and Russell and I made this thing together. And we had a really great coup this year with that nomination for an Audie Award right out of the gate. It's the first time I've done this, and it's amazing just to be in that company.
We're also lucky today in that just before this panel, there was Big Finish Productions. So we have 3 of the audio finalists represented in the audio drama category out of the 5. So it's a really unique opportunity to just be able to speak one-on-one with the creators of those nominated and the winning productions that were involved with the Audies this year. I just also personally want to say thank you again to Mike, because we talked about this last night when he and I met and we started working on the Ernie Pyle Experiment. We didn't know each other, and it was something that we had to work through collaboratively so that we could figure out how to talk to one another through the course of the process, and have that shorthand, because it's not like where you actually have worked with somebody for 20 years and then you come in and you get in there and are working, you have those shortcuts. Mike and I had to work through things and really figure out how to talk to one another and make this come to life. And it was fun. There were challenges at times, but those challenges were also very rewarding. So I just want to thank him again, because he had me on to be able to do this production with him, and we went to war and made it happen.
Thank you, Russell. Thanks for those kind words. Yeah, Russell and I have become really close friends now, which has been the most rewarding part of the whole thing for me. He's sort of taken me under his wing in this world because I don't do anything technically. I am a Luddite, and I still am. I probably resist more than I should. It's probably a lot easier than I think it is or make it out to be, all of this stuff. But I'm glad I have Russell as a proxy mind to get me through this, and I'm learning a lot these last couple of years. But he's made me a better storyteller too. So.
And vice versa, my friend. And that goes back and forth, even with what we were doing in studio as we're working together. Again, we pushed each other in a way that I think comes through in what actually everybody has heard is the end result.
Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah. And the other thing, the second thing that we did together won a platinum award in Here Now.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. It's crazy. Well,
which actually you can hear later on today, in fact. And Mike wrote that one as well. It's called Back to Nothing and is set actually 1963. And
no, it'd be later than that,
right?
It's the Apollo moon mission.
Okay,
1970.
So I'm misspeaking there.
Yeah.
So it's the moon landing, and the thing that was interesting about that is that Mike actually came at this from the perspective of we were just put into lockdown, and he was trying to think about a story he could write in isolation and just talk about that and what we were all going through as human beings at the time. And that speaks a lot to who Mike is as a writer, because he also, throughout the Ernie Pyle experiment, has done that where he just focuses on those human moments and makes sure that you can connect one-on-one with the characters in a way that they're real and living, breathing people, and you have that emotional connection.
Yeah. I wanted to tie in what was going on in the 1930s when Ernie Pyle wrote his column with his wife Jerry to what we're going through today. And there were plenty of times along the journey of making this that it was like, oh my God, we have that episode about so-and-so, and then we have a news thing that comes across that is exactly what that is. I think about the drought story that we did, which was episode 11, maybe. Is that what it was? Steve Scott played the farmer from Montana.
Yeah.
And Ernie goes to visit them with this guy who was the head of a relief portion of the WPA, where they were trying to get these farmers out of the drought and moved into cities and relocated. It was a relocation committee or whatever. And I think about these drought stories and issues that we're having in the West right now, in the same spot in Montana, because at that time in the 1930s, the drought came through the Northwest and it came across Idaho, Montana, the Dakotas, and it's happening that way right now too. So that's just an example. But I try to bring up things that were, prescient to us today, that might speak to us today, and bring that into the characters in the writing.
We're actually joined here also with Brian Barnes, who worked on the Foley throughout, and the thing that was fun about that is, and I'll let him talk about this, but we essentially created a new way of doing Foley that I'm aware of. And because, again, we were trying to figure out things on the fly of how to make it simpler, because we knew we were under the gun as far as production side of things, where the sound designers had a very limited time to be able to turn things around and get it out for broadcast. And so part of what we did was we actually would make sure that a dialogue edit was done where it was essentially picture locked like you would in film. So like with film, where you'd have the picture to work from, we did something different with Foley. And again, I'll let Brian jump in and talk about that.
Yeah. So like what Russell was saying, we were pretty crunched for time. We had limited sound room access. So we only had access, for certain days of the week for so many weeks. And so we really need to find a way to condense and to basically record as many sounds as we, needed. And I think Russell coined the term RJM method. We basically blocked out the scene in the sound room that we were in. Like you kind of, we tried to visualize it in a 3D space and then set out the props in the areas. So we would have like the dresser on this side with the, the wooden floor that I would walk on and then interact. And then we would have the bed, which we made out of like a bench and some quilts and stuff, which was over on the other wall. It would just help the Foley artists, either me or Nick Crone were the two artists working on it. It helped us visualize and stay in the scene while we were listening to the scene that had been already recorded by the voice actors.
Yeah, and what Brian's talking about, like, calling it RJM Foley, because it's not like we're like completely creating something from scratch. It was taking two different processes that have been done for ages and combining them into a new technique, which is that you're doing like you would as far as a live radio drama, where you're performing it in sync, and then the other element of that is in film. If you were doing Foley, you would actually be performing to what you'd see on screen. And that's how Foley was created originally, with Jack Foley all the way back in the 1930s. But this process then is taking that same thing and where you're then, as a Foley artist, doing it live in time with what's already been performed and created by Mike in the team in studio as far as the acting work. So they have to essentially, as performers, as Foley artists, create all of the sounds from clothing movement to the way the characters walk and match the emotional tone of what the actors have done in the original recording that Mike did with the actors in studio.
Yeah, and it's very detailed, the sounds that you guys created and the quality that you turned these scripts into.
Yeah, Russell was talking about matching the emotion of all of the emotion was like clear in the voice acting, and it was a challenge to have that come across in a completely non-verbal way. I don't really have an experience, a background in theater very much at all, so I don't have a whole lot of acting experience, and so it was kind of new to me to get in the mind space. So I did most of all the sound effects for all the female characters in Ernie Pyle. And so I had to get in the mindset of the, the emotion that it's really, it was challenging. It just was something that it was new to me. And
You had to do some acting.
Yeah, exactly. I did. It really is, we're actors, in a sense, in absolute real sense, we're acting just as much as they are.
Yeah. And Mike, can you talk about like what it was like and what you did differently with the actors in studio as far as what you wanted from this production with the acting? Because there was something specific.
there was one thing. Okay, so the whole thing was supposed to be, it's like a found footage thing, the show is, and so I wanted it to sound like a documentary, the quality realistic. So I'd tell the actors, it is more John Cassavetes and less Preston Sturgis. That's all I'd tell them, you know, and it is straight up realistic, you know, and everybody would be like, yeah, all the actors like, okay. And after I would give them that note, I'd say, just try to be as real as possible. Well, they got the second part of that note. It wasn't until almost the last day of shooting where somebody said, you know, I don't even know who those people are. John Cassavetes and Preston Sturgis. Now, Preston Sturgis, of course, is, you know, the filmmaker that the Coen brothers copied for Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? He's a great filmmaker and writer and playwright from the 30s. And John Cassavetes is this great, you know, filmmaker. He had a 16 millimeter. He was an actor. He had a 16 millimeter film, and he started making movies in the 50s and 60s that were more like European films. And their performances are, you know, legendary for being realistic. But in any case, me saying to them, just be realistic is all I needed to say. Because after that, I started asking all the other actors, do you know who these people are? And then most of them were like, no. I'm like, well, why didn't you tell me? I could have adjusted my note to you. It was great. So
another note that I learned from you, Mike, as a directing tool is, can you talk about what you gave as a note in respect to not pausing or the breath on the punctuation?
Sure. You know, I learned this a long time ago. That is when people talk, they pause, but they always seem to pause. I mean, real human behavior is pausing in the middle of your sentence, just like I'm doing here. You pause somewhere in the middle of your sentence. You switch thoughts in the middle of sentences. You get your next thought in the middle of a sentence. You finish that sentence, and then you get to that other thought. So to do that, I tell actors, don't pause after a sentence, because when you're reading a script, it seems the natural breaks is to pause after the period and then take a breath and then start your next sentence. Well, that's not human behavior. That's not what we do. And I just say, pause somewhere in the middle of the next sentence. Pause in the middle of the sentence. Speak through the period. Start your next sentence. Pause for your breath or your new thought. Perhaps on the comma, perhaps not. Just make a choice. And it makes it, and actors respond to it. You know, it takes them a while to maybe really make the actualization, but they see results immediately on the next time that they say it, and it helps things. Like I say, immediately, the next take is usable.
And what we talked about the historical accuracy of like what we tried to do with this production. And Mike, I'm going to share something that struck me from actually the last panel, which is funny because both the winning production and what we did the exact same thing, which is crazy. Is that when we started talking about Ernie's home in Washington, D.C., remember what craziness I got up to as far as the sound director here?
Yes, I do.
It wasn't as, because I wasn't working as a sound designer, and this is also part of what Brian was already referring to as far as knowing the distances and stuff in relation to space, is I actually did my homework so I could help the sound designer and the Foley artists, and I found the actual floor plans for one of Ernie's and Jerry's homes in Washington, D.C., and that also helped us because we then knew like where in Washington, D.C. that was, so that we knew that the harbor wasn't too far out. And so we had the boats and everything else. And since it's a period piece, we had to think about what the cars sounded like from the period and things like that as far as the ambience that were coming in. But the big thing that struck me from the conversation that just happened in the last panel and this one is both productions actually made sure that they created and had a floor plan and knew where the relationships as far as space were taking place and how characters were moving.
Right. Spatially, you're like, okay, so this, you have the actual floor plan that is to scale. So you can say, okay, the distance between this doorway and that doorway is 12 steps. So you put 12 steps in, you know, that kind of stuff. It's a little bit of genius there. It's great. It helps too. It takes away the mystery of what should I do here?
Right.
You know?
And it also can affect it. Definitely can affect the pacing too. If you forget things, like if a character is holding an object and then they're supposed to walk over somewhere and then set it on something, but they're way too far away, you know, and it helps you catch things that you might otherwise overlook.
And that was something, even with the dialogue edits, we were adjusting the pacing so that we could incorporate that space, that sense of space as we were doing that live and cutting so that we could create that fully.
Yeah, I think, getting the timing and the spacing was one of the most difficult parts we had to deal with.
And sorry, Mike, you were going to say something.
Oh, no. I also think in the episode that we just played, you know, there are things that you guys nailed, like the sound of the knocking on the window, the rolling down of the car window, just gives you the idea that we're in two different spaces. Jerry's in the back of the car, and it sounds like you're in an enclosed environment. And then the knocking on the door, and you open, and then you got the ambient sound from outside, and the change of the voice from Father Pyle, you know, from being outside to now being inside because it rolls down. I really always enjoyed that, just, you know, 10-second moment.
And that's all Jesse Brewer is the sound designer, as far as playing around with EQ, and then what we supplied to her as far as the Foley effects. So yeah, that make sure we give her a shout out, because
for sure she's fantastic. Jesse Brewer.
Yeah, being able to see her work her magic on this, the sounds that we worked on it's so awesome. It takes it to an entirely different level of you know, making the raw sounds and then hearing them fleshed out and built into the scene is amazing.
Yeah.
Mike, can you talk about the wind? Because, and the reason I know you wanted something specific, and you went back and forth with Jesse on that, because there was a specific thing you wanted with this episode in particular.
Oh, there's a timing and the build of the wind playing in the back of what Ernie's talking about. It's one of his most well-known pre-war writings. It was this time that he went back to his farm in Indiana, and he talks about the Midwest wind. And I know that the sound of wind is so evocative. It's like music in and of itself, in which we had great music too at the same time, swelling with that. And so anyways, that I wanted her to, I just kept having her bump up the sound of the big rush of wind in the trees. Yeah. Is that what you're talking about?
I am, because like you had it layered in where we had also the sounds of the trees moving, plus the sound of the wind itself. And that even came back again when Ernie was then writing upstairs later in the episode, and at his typewriter writing the story down. And I know that, like, it's not that the wind was weak, but like you wanted there to, it essentially became a character in this episode.
Yeah, it did. It was sorry, I had to go get my charger. Yeah, it was a character, because that's the name of the piece. That's the name of the title of the not only the episode, but the column that he wrote, The Long Sad Wind. I don't know whether you know that long, sad wind that blows so steadily across thousands of miles of Midwest flatlands in the summertime. Even if you do know it, you might not understand. So it's him talking about a childhood memory. And so I wanted to evoke memory, and especially childhood memories. and I wanted it to swell your emotions. So, and it worked.
Hey, let's also give a shout out to Josh, because like there's a fun story too as far as Bobby and Josh and him nailing that audition, eh?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Tell it.
So we had like something like 80 people auditioning, where we had to expand our auditions twice, both on the front and tail end, where we literally were going a 12-hour day with, I think, I can't remember if it was 5 or 10 minute slots. But the point is that like we were completely booked solid with the amount of actors that were coming in and auditioning for the SAG call.
And we did it all live. Nobody recorded and sent things to us. We had them we wanted to meet the people. They had to be right on a lot of different levels. And one was, were they compatible to work with us?
Yep. So in the due course of the auditions, we had a student that saw that we were doing the auditions from the theater school, as far as the IU theater department, and Josh Hogan came over and said, "Hey, can I audition?" And we didn't have a time slot, but Josh like was a real go-getter, and he literally waited 6 hours to make sure that he could get in if we had any time to squeeze him in, if somebody just bailed and didn't show up for one of their time slots. And that really stuck out for both Mike and I when we were doing the auditions, and we made sure we got him in. And then he also killed it as far as what he actually did in the audition itself proper. And just because of that, when we got to the point past callbacks where we're talking through casting, his determination was something that just stuck with us, and we're like, no, we need to give this guy a chance.
There was also that girl who drove across 2 states to audition for us. She didn't get a part, but we were really bummed about not getting her in. You still have her contacts? We need to give her work in the future, man.
Yeah.
Just, she was great as an actress, but she was also, boy, that dedication, it means something to me, you know?
Well,
same with Josh.
That's something, it's so hard. And you know this, like we had so many good actors that came out and auditioned, and like, which is great, which fantastic, because we had options, but that also makes it more difficult because you don't want to have to say no, but there's only so many people that you can actually get in. And it's also a matter of who plays off of each other well, and who also works with us well, as far as Mike's giving notes and we're working with them in the callback. So it's just part of the process.
We got any questions?
I don't know.
I think we're actually kind of up on the time, right?
We are.
I think we're pushing up. Yeah. So
all right. Well, thank you for pointing that out, Brian, because we're talking.
Yeah, I know. Didn't want to stop the flow, but I think.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Well,
thanks so much, guys, for listening.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks again, man.
Thanks.
We'll see you in an hour.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you to everybody for listening.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.